The days are heating up, and this means that the garden season is in full force. We have fresh vegetables flowing in at a rapid rate, and today I'm inviting you into our kitchen for 3 of our favorite summer meals. I also have a bonus tip on the easiest way to preserve corn that you've probably ever seen, a couple of our favorite snacks, and lastly, I want to have a conversation about where I'm letting myself down when it comes to feeding my crew. When I decided to bring you along for a week in my kitchen, I knew it was impossible to show you meals that we eat without leaving out the snacks that fit in between as well. Today I want to show you one of my go-to snacks, which is to put together a full vegetable or fruit, depending on the day, tray that the kids can access whenever they're looking for something to add in. Today I'm using apples, cucumbers, some summer sausage from the deer that we harvested back in the fall, as well as some cheese. But there are many other options that we add in at different times of the year. As you can see, my little one here is always ready to steal her first snack. It doesn't take long for me to get it full, but it seems as if no matter how fast I move, somebody's always coming in to grab that first bite or second before I even get it full and ready to go. Now, when it comes to packing my tray, I have found a few tricks that make this a little more effective than when I very first started. Firstly, I don't just throw everything in there. I pack it in as tightly as I can. This prevents oxidation from getting to things like the apples and turning them brown, and it also allows to overfill the tray so that I can put more in at one time than you would normally think. With my kids eating 10 to sometimes 15 cucumbers a day, just depending on what we've got going on, or 3 to 5 apples, I really want to pack in as much as I can. Other veggie tray favorites for our crew include sugar snap peas, hard-boiled eggs, strawberries, carrots, and peppers. Whatever's available we'll throw in, and they really do love to eat it. I've found that my kids have grown up around the garden and fresh produce and really love anything they can get their hands on, which is quite the opposite of how I grew up. You wouldn't have caught me going for much more than the apples or the sausage on this tray, so my kids are definitely having a totally different experience as they're growing up gardening. I want to take just a second to tell you about the vegetable tray that I'm using because I always get questions when I'm using something new and don't discuss it a little bit in the content. This is actually a Pampered Chef tray, and it's called Cool and Serve. It's something that my mom got years back and actually passed down to me, but the green lining underneath actually keeps the food cold. So this tray can sit out at a barbecue, for example, and keep everything cold while you're outdoors, and it also has a lid. But that's also what makes it really, really great to keep stocked and full all year long in the refrigerator for the kids to pull out when they want some snacks. They can leave it on the table for 30 minutes or so, or even an hour, and everything still stays really cold. I did look on Amazon for those of you who do not like to use MLM products and couldn't find anything remotely similar. Everything that they had required ice. And to me, that takes away the flexibility and the ease of having a vegetable tray like that put together if you have to worry about keeping ice cold all the time. So in that case, I would just use a regular tray like you're seeing me use here and just keep it in the refrigerator covered with some kind of plastic wrap or something to keep it fresh. I also will make a note here. This is not sponsored or promoted in any way by Pampered Chef. Even though you'll see me using a lot of their products in my kitchen, there are just some things that they offer that I can't even find anything remotely similar anywhere else. Moving away from the veggie tray, I want to show you how I make pork roast and the sides that we love to go with it. So the first thing that I did was get the roast all dried off and salt and pepper on both sides, and I got my cast iron pan raging hot, and I'm putting it fat side down right here to get a good sear on it. I have also found that when it comes to flipping a huge chunk of meat like this or a spatchcock chicken, having a fish turner spatula is very, very handy to get underneath and get the whole thing lifted up. So that's what you see me using often when I'm using those larger cuts of meat. Now what I'm doing is searing off all sides of this pork before I throw it in the oven to finish off. It's really important to get that sear on, and that keeps all of the juice inside the meat when it's cooking and gives you just a more juicy, flavorful cut in the end. But when you're doing something so large like this, you also have to sear off those ends. So I'm wrangling this with some barbecue tongs to make sure that I can stand it up efficiently and not have it falling over. The regular ones that I use just won't work for something like this. So don't forget that you have those barbecue tools available that come in really handy even in the kitchen. Once everything is seared off, I'm just sliding it right into the oven as is, and we'll let it come up to temperature. In the meantime, I'm pulling out my corn. Now, as you can see here, it's coming straight out of an old feed sack from the farmer that I purchased it from, which happens to be my brother. And he told me this trick a couple years ago, and it has changed the way I handle my corn. When we get the corn, it comes in these feed sacks. I fold them over and put it straight in the freezer. No prep, there is nothing to it. As long as you have the freezer space, the corn will be good and come out in perfect condition even 2 years later. And if you're wondering how I know, this bag that you see here, which has one more serving in it, is going back to the freezer. It's corn that we actually picked up back in 2022. To finish up the corn and get it into the oven, all you have to do is pull off the pieces of the husk that are dangling. And the reason I do this is because I don't want anything to catch fire in the oven. It gets obviously super hot in there, and anything hanging down that could be close to a flame or that might catch fire is something you want to get rid of. To feed my crew, we need 10 ears at a time, which I know is quite excessive, and most of you don't need that many, but it does take just a second to get that all ready to go. But as you can see here, ice crystals still on. These are going in the oven at 350, just like this, straight on the rack. Hopefully this helps you out with your corn preservation. I know recently I had a friend who was wanting some more corn, which I'm going to pick up here just in a couple days. And she said she really wanted to get it, but she didn't want to go through the preservation because she didn't have time for it right now. And this trick changed her mind. So hopefully, if you see a farmer with a lot of corn right now, it might change yours as well if you have a little extra room in your freezer. Even if you don't have a lot of room, even grabbing just 5 or 10 ears that you can put up and use as time goes by is a really, really nice thing to do for yourself, to treat yourself to something that tastes so fresh, even in the dead of winter. Speaking of fresh, the last side that we're going to have with this awesome meal are the fresh green beans out of the garden. Now, these are a type called Kalima that I get from rareseeds.com. I will make sure to link them down below so everybody can find the exact one. They are really, really delicious. This green bean is really tender and it's actually on the smaller side. It is a bush style bean. And while I wish I could find one that was a vining and I could trellis that put off a similar style bean, I'm yet to find one. So if you have a garden at home and you have a favorite green bean that is similar to the Kalima and will grow up a trellis, I would love to know it. I love growing things vertically when I can, and it saves me a lot of time from getting down and actually pushing them off the bush. But for something that tastes this good, we will absolutely do it. The beauty of something so fresh and easy as a green bean is that the only thing that we do to get them properly prepared in our house is to snip off the ends. I get my cast iron skillet really hot. I melt some butter and saute some garlic in it before adding the green beans. Now, the beans, butter, and garlic can actually stay in the cast iron for quite a while before they start to soften, depending on the texture of the green bean that you're actually using. Once they do start to cook up nicely, I will usually turn off the heat, add a lid, and just let them finish steaming while the remainder of the meal continues to process. Once these green beans are finished, there is never one left in the pan, no matter how large of a batch I make. The kids are always ready to take them down. So it's a little disappointing when the season ends. We never preserve any green beans because we love the way they taste fresh over canned. So it is something that we wait on until the next summer, even though we could, of course, buy them at the store. We're really focusing on eating seasonally. And so it's just a real gift when we get into these particular seasons to be able to have these ingredients available, aside from things that we preserve, like the corn, for the remainder of the year. Now, as you did see there, my big guy loves watermelon, and usually his dad cuts it up, but he told me he had it handled and he was going to take care of it for the day. So we got a watermelon cracking over on the other side for our dessert, and I'm pulling the corn and the meat out of the oven. Now, I do always temp check my meat. I want to make sure that anything I'm serving my family is going to be in the safe zone. So, after a quick temp check to make sure everything looked good, I transferred it to a cutting board to set and rest for at least 10 minutes before going ahead and cutting it up. Now, I will tell you, my larger cutting boards were in action between the watermelon and the corn. So, I put that on a little one, and I actually told my son at the time that that was not a good choice because the juice was going to go everywhere. And I was absolutely right, just so you know. We did end up mopping up a little juice all off the countertop. So definitely make sure or be aware that when you take something like that off the stove, you do need to have a cutting board large enough or one with some wells for the juice to flow into so that you don't have a mess like we had. Now, once the corn has steamed in the husk, all you have to do is cut off the ends. The silk comes off beautifully. And then we just go ahead and store it in my little covered dish over here until everybody is ready to go. I usually will butter them all up together before plating them so I can enjoy my meal as well and not spend it cutting up meat and buttering food. Now, anyone who has a large family will know kids are going to vary vastly in their taste. I have one that really loves to eat mainly meat, and I have one that loves her vegetables and is a little bit shy when it comes to eating meat. But she asked for seconds of her chicken last night in the meal that you just saw. So we had to make sure to put this one on the list to continue to do over and over again, because anytime I can get somebody that is a little hesitant to go deep into their meat to ask for extra, I'm always happy with the way that turns out. Now, moving on to the next meal that we're making here, it is going to be a beautiful cobb salad. Now, my kids are huge salad eaters, so this isn't a stretch for us. If your kids don't like salad, of course, you might have a little work to do to pass this meal off as something that they would enjoy, but it was so good. So I want to tell you exactly how we got this going. The first thing we did was start off with getting our eggs hard boiled. Now, for me, the easiest way to do that is in the Instapot. So I stack up as many as I can, like Jenga to the top, to get them in the pot, and then I will run them for 4 minutes at high pressure, steam release them for 4 minutes, and then put them in an ice bath until I'm ready to crack them, or for at least 4 or 5 minutes. After that, they peel really easily, which we'll show you here in a bit. But in the meantime, we decided to get the bacon on our sheet pans and into the oven so it could be processing while we finished up the other ingredients. The next step is getting the salad washed. And my tiny helper here is always game for some salad spinner action. So we chopped it up, put it in the salad spinner, and then we just add some water. And I do add some lemon essential oil, which you couldn't see in this specific shot, but I do that to make sure that it dissolves any of the solids that are on the food and gets it really clean. After that, we just dump the water, put the straining basket back into the spinner, and then give it a good spin until it's dry. Now, if you've never seen this little one work a salad spinner, you're in for a real treat. She thinks this thing is one of the greatest appliances in the kitchen because she loves to get it going extra fast. While putting together a salad isn't really even complex when it comes to the number of things that we do in our kitchen, there really are a lot of moving parts when you're doing something as detailed as a cobb with so many ingredients. So with the salad out of the way, we jump back to the eggs. I'm putting them directly on the ice, and I do it this way because that way I won't overflow the bowl by adding too much or not enough water. So I put them directly on the ice, then take the bowl with ice over to the sink and fill it up with cold water. Once those are full, I just let them set for, like I said, at least 5 minutes. But generally with a meal like this, I'm always busy doing something else, so it takes a minute for me to get back over to the eggs. With the little one in charge of the water and the eggs, I move back to the bacon. The faster you get it off of the trays that it's actually baking on, the quicker it will stop cooking. If you leave it setting in that bacon grease, it's going to continue to cook. So I pull it off and put it onto some cooling racks so it can drain, and the grease just drains down underneath to that bottom cooking sheet that I cooked the bacon on, so I don't have a big mess all over the countertop. Then I add some of the bacon grease from the first tray to my cast iron skillet so that I can heat it up to cook off my chicken and add some extra flavor to it. Now, you can use just a regular chicken breast if you like. I'm using canned chicken thighs. The reason I like canned chicken over a raw chicken is because it saves so much time. All I'm trying to do here is add some extra flavor and get it warm because it's fully cooked. And it's also been sitting in a delicious chicken broth on my shelf since I got it jarred up a few months back. I will link the video to the canning process on the chicken if you're interested in it. I do a pretty chicken, as they say. I've done ugly in the past, but I really didn't like the texture of it overall and found that switching to a pretty version actually was better for my own kitchen. Now, I do believe I mentioned before that these eggs are pretty easy to crack when you actually use the Instapot method. So I want to show you here just how simple that can be. And my little one is always game when there are eggs to be cracked, so she's in here ready to go. I usually do have to remind her the next time that she cracks a raw egg that there is a difference between those and the ones we're peeling now, because I don't want her to just smash it on the countertop like she does these to go ahead and get them started being peeled. But once these eggs are done, all you have to do is give them a good roll on the countertop. Make sure to do both ends because that really helps to pop the actual membrane around the egg itself, and the air bubble really allows the whole outer shell to come off very simply. Once we do that, I just rinse them in the cold water there. We set them over on a plate and they are good to go. So I let her work on this project and own it so I can move on to other ingredients that are still incoming on this salad. I know it seems like a lot, but if you are a Cobb fan, you know all of those ingredients work together so beautifully that I didn't want to skip anything in this one. So I am adding avocado at this time. Now, avocados are super easy to slice and easy to get out of the actual skin. All you have to do is take your knife and run it down through, and then just use a spoon to scoop it directly out. If you want to dice it, you can just slice it both ways inside the skin still, once down and then across, and it really is a simple way to do it. To get the middle or the seed out, if you just take your knife and give it a good whack right in the middle, it will stick into that guy and it'll just be really easy to pull out if it is ripe and ready to go. Now she's still working on the eggs, but I managed to grab a couple to get diced up for the salad. So this is just really simple. I just give them a small dice. I have sliced them in the past, but when you are eating a salad, or at least when I'm wanting a salad and I'm feeding it to the kids, everything in bite-sized portions is much easier than when they're full-sized. Next, I grabbed some of our garden fresh tomatoes, which I'm so thankful are back. We did not have a fresh tomato all winter because I love the taste of homegrown so much more. So it's great to have them fresh and ready to go. Added in the bacon as well as that cooked chicken. The one thing that's still not there is the blue cheese, but I forgot it completely. Lucky for me, my mom was headed over to the house and she managed to stop and get some. Now here I'm whipping up a dressing to go on top. I am making a blue cheese dressing. Now what I did was started with a mayo base and then added some sour cream, and you saw me putting in some powdered buttermilk. That is one of my all-time favorite kitchen ingredients. Anytime buttermilk is needed, it is so handy to have the powdered version, and especially when you're making something like a salad dressing, because you can just leave out the liquid and then thin it to the consistency that you're really looking for. I will make sure to link that recipe down below. The salad was a huge hit. Everybody left stuffed. I actually didn't have a request for snacks for quite a while after that one, so we'll consider it a huge win. Now, for the next day, I'm using some of that leftover chicken that I had made for the salad and recreating it into one of my favorite all-time sandwiches that I get from Panera Bread. But first, I'm putting a butterfly mask on my little lady. When she's not helping, she's absolutely distracting. But that's the job of the little ones. Sometimes they just need mom. And as you'll see throughout this meal, I am needed a lot, but that is just life in a busy kitchen. As for the sandwich, this is going to be my take on the Fontega chicken sandwich that you can get from Panera. Now, I don't have homemade focaccia. This is actually one of the areas that I was mentioning earlier where I feel like I'm letting myself down, and not focaccia specifically, of course, but just in bread. I used to make homemade bread all the time and didn't purchase, but I went through a phase where I didn't eat much bread and I still really don't. But as a result, I kind of quit making it for my family. I do occasionally need bread for meals like this or just when they want, a French toast or something of the sort. And we've got back into the habit of just buying a loaf from the store on occasion. Not only is it less healthy, but it really is incredibly more expensive. So I need to get myself back to that place. But I find that sometimes when we try to do everything at every time, something has to give. Like right now, we've just come out of baseball season. Although I say out, we still had another tournament even today, but it's always something. We've had a couple Bible schools in a row. We have another one this week, and then it'll be moving into back to school. My point here is we can always come up with a reason or something's going on that really takes us off our game. And it's okay to drop something, even for a time period or even forever, if it's just not serving you in that time. But for me, it really is something that I want to get back to. So I do have plans to get my sourdough starter back up in action and move back into the habit of just creating everything that we want from scratch at home instead of relying on those things that are purchased in the store. While I haven't been nailing the bread lately, I have been making all of our mayo, which is the base of the actual sauce that you see me making here. I started out with a regular mayo and then threw in one pepper, which is a chipotle and adobo, so it has a little bit of a kick to it. This is something you want to be cautious on depending on the taste of your children. You might want to add extra mayo or back off just a little bit if you're just wanting a slight bit of the flavor. But I added one pepper in the sauce and then blended it into the mayo that I had just made. Now, to go on the sandwich, you need thinly sliced onion and a couple of slices of tomato. You can see while I've been waiting on something like this, my beautiful tomatoes are ready to go. These are the Paul Robeson tomatoes. They're my son's absolute favorite. I grow several different varieties, and this is the only one he wants to eat just salted. And so he will be sneaking in to grab any of the scraps he can find later. So I have to use those up fast before he gets his fingers on them. Now, this sandwich actually comes together really fast once you have everything prepped. So here I'm getting my griddle warmed up and pulling out that leftover chicken from yesterday. So it has the flavor of the bacon grease, the chicken ready to go, and then I just take a little bit of mayo and put it on the side of the bread that's going to go down on the grill. I use mayo to brown everything or even to do something like a grilled cheese. You don't get the flavor, but you get a crunchier texture on the bread than you would if you use butter. So using my mayo, I'm putting it on all of the sides that will be touching the grill, so the outsides. And then I'm using mayo on the inside of one of the sandwiches that I'm making for my girls because they don't like the spiciness of that adobo sauce that I just made. Now, as I was getting everything down on the griddle, you can see there was a little bit of a problem going on between the girls. We had a major fight over who got to have which Barbie. And it turns out that all it needed or all it took to solve the problem was a good hug from mom and a little chat and giving her some tips on how she might say or request the Barbie back to settle things down and get the kitchen back to a little more peace. Now, in the meantime, I went ahead and put the onions down on the bread as well as tomatoes, and I'm getting the chicken all ready to go here. Now, once it's warm, I just added it directly to the top. The girls are having mayo down first and then just mozzarella cheese. My sandwich requires mozzarella. It also called for fresh basil, but in the midst and the hubbub of everything going on, that just absolutely did not happen. If you're making this at home, I would definitely put some on there. It adds a really nice, unique flavor. You can go ahead and just really thinly slice those leaves, and that way you don't have the taste or just a big leaf coming out depending on the bite. But whatever works best for you. And you can also use just like a freeze-dried basil or a regular dried one if you don't have fresh available. So that is an option for you also. Now, when I get my cheese or my mozzarella in, I buy it from Azure Standard in 5-pound blocks so I can get the organic cheese at a really good rate. I do go ahead and shred it up because most typically what we use our mozzarella for is pizza, but it works really well for sandwiches like this. I do just go ahead and keep it in the freezer and pull it out as needed though, so it will take a little bit more time to warm up here on the grill, but it really does freeze well. So if you've ever been curious about how you can save cheese or how you can preserve it, if you go ahead and just shred it up, mozzarella, cheddar, or anything like that will come out and you won't have any issues with it melting or texture, anything of the sort. It is really, really delicious. And you can buy in bulk when you see a deal and it, reap that savings all year long. Now, if you notice the kiddo here eating the tomatoes, right behind him is a stack of cucumbers. There are 50 cucumbers. And that is what I was out back doing while the kids were working on some other activities inside. As a result, several of them had a late breakfast. I do keep several different frozen breakfast options inside the freezer so they can pull them out and eat them when they want. But most of them were not hungry at this time. So what you're seeing here are two sandwiches, one for myself and one for one of my little ladies, although I cut it into three different pieces and I ended up serving three of them just because they weren't super hungry at the time. Now, the sides that we have along with it are our refrigerator pickles that we just keep going all the time when we're in cucumber season, as well as hard-boiled eggs that we made the day before. Another great side dish item that I will often do if I don't have these two options available is just a potato salad. Now, I make this from canned potatoes because it cuts out a ton of the time involved. The potatoes are already soft, and I cut them about into the size that I would want for potato salad when I put them in the jar. So all I have to do is dump them and drain them, and I let them set for just a little while to go ahead and get the extra water off from the jar because I don't want the moisture, but then just go ahead and mix up the dressing that would go along with the potato salad. And it makes a really nice, light, easy side dish when you don't want to go to the time to make something heavy or where you're looking for something light to go with a sandwich. Now, our evenings right now are super crazy. So around 4 o'clock, I'm coming up with a snack that the kiddos can eat before they head off to Bible school for the evening. They are there from 5 o'clock to 8:15 right now, and they get a snack, but it's really not enough to actually hold them over or replace a meal. So when they come home, they're always ready for fourth meal, as we call it, and they will pull from the previous meals that we've had during the week, the leftovers that are in their fridge. But before they go, we're going to have some popcorn. Now, if you're used to microwave popcorn, there is nothing that compares to the popcorn that you can make on the stove. So we are just using an organic popcorn here, again, that I sourced from Azure. I am popping it in avocado oil because it has a really high smoke point, just enough oil to cover the bottom of the pan. And I'm putting about 2/3 cup of popcorn in this actual popcorn maker itself. This one is one that I just got from Lehman. They make awesome stuff and it worked really, really well. Previously, I had one that had like the floppy lid and the gears, and it was just a disaster and kept breaking. And my kids often will make the popcorn, so I wanted to get them one that I felt was a little bit easier to use, and this one fit the bill. So once we get the popcorn dumped in, it will be topped with butter. Now, we love, love, love butter. So this gets a little shy of a half stick just based on the size of popcorn that I can make in this popper. Top it with salt, and then we're good to go. Now, sometimes I can get away with one popper full of popcorn, but usually they'll eat this bowl down and come in for a second. I hope you have enjoyed this run through our week of what it looks like to be in my kitchen with all the chaos and the kids running around and the joy that that just brings to our family. If you have any questions or any other recommendations about the kind of green beans that you cook, I would love to know. And again, I will link ingredients and anything that you've seen us using that you have a question about down below in the comments if it is available for you to purchase. So check the link for description and make sure to come back next week because I am cooking up a huge brisket and I'm going to show you several different ways that I'm going to recreate that and stretch that purchase to feed our family for almost an entire week. So thanks for stopping by, friends, and I'll see you back soon.